Blog Talk Radio.
I'm your host, Toni Slate. We have a special guest, author, poet, speaker, and teacher, Michael Robert Lawrence. Michael discovered the basic mechanics which allow you to manage your thoughts and emotions. He spent a decade testing them and developed a practical method for you to take control of your mind now. Welcome to the show, Michael. What's going on in your world?
I am good. Busy as usual, but I'm very good. How are you?
I'm great. Very busy. Exciting things going on.
Yes, they always are.
You're looking forward to meeting with Keith Keller next Monday?
Absolutely. I like that guy a lot. He's definitely a rock star. I enjoyed the conversation with him for sure. He has a lot of valuable information. So, he's a good man too. So, yes, I'm looking forward to that.
Yep, exactly. And you both are good guys, and you both have a lot of very dynamic and fresh ideas, and you're both very creative minds. So
yeah, we have something in common, and we both figured out Twitter from scratch because I didn't know anything about Twitter 2.5 years ago. I just got it from my teaching. I didn't know anyone, so I had to figure out that whole thing. But obviously, I figured it out pretty well. So did he. So it's good to compare notes.
Yeah. So, Michael, why did you develop the mechanics of the mind anyway?
Well, what happened to me is how I discovered how the mind works is I went through horrendous traumas, and actually I'll be brief about that for a second, because typically when I'm on Twitter I'm talking about how simple it is to control the mind using the mechanics, etc. Occasionally I'll get hit by someone that will say, you can't possibly do that when you're grieving the loss of a loved one, or you can't possibly do that when you're having all these financial problems. People assume that I drive around a Ferrari and I silver spoon stuck up my butt and my life's been easy. But it hasn't been easy at all, and that's why I was able to discover how to control the mind. I had a number of traumas that detached me from thinking and emotion, from thought and emotion enough so that I would notice that it wasn't me and I was in control. And because of the pain was so intense and I detached, I become peaceful, and I started to notice how my mind was operating. And then over time, I started to notice and write down how my mind was working, and I used mind programming to make my mind even more peaceful, and it became very, very peaceful. And then within that peace, I noticed entirely how the mind operates. So I used to be an engineer, so I mapped the mind and simplified it like a piece of software into functioning parts, and I broke it up into 4 functioning parts. The consciousness, which is you, and it uses 3 tools: attention, thought, and emotion, to create your experiences of life within your mind. And this is how I mapped it all out, and I tested it for a decade and regained control, and I come up with this method so other people can do it without the trauma and all the strain and everything else I went through. And it's universal.
So what do you mean by universal?
Well, the reason it's universal is the mechanics of the mind. I'll get back to the 4 parts. The conscious that you is the director. This directs your entire mind, and it uses the 3 tools that I just mentioned: attention, thought, and emotion. Now, attention is the power source for thoughts. You use it to select the thought. When you pay attention to a thought, it's like plugging an electric socket. You power it up and you experience it. If you don't pay attention to a thought, you don't allow it to have any power. It's like not plugging it in. It's powerless, and you don't experience it. So attention is literally the power source for thoughts. It's how you select them. It's how you experience them. And once you select a thought with your intention, you're selecting a thought that's basically just from a menu. Thoughts are harmless. They're just menu options, like ordering from a restaurant menu. You order the meal that you want, and you don't order the meal that you don't want. They have no power on their own. They can't harm you unless you pay attention to them and power them up. And once you pay attention to a thought, emotion allows you to feel what you're thinking. So there is not multiple emotions. There's not an angry emotion, a happy emotion, a sad emotion, anything like that. There's just one emotion that allows you to feel what you're thinking. So I give you an example of how the tools work, how you create an experience within your mind. You direct your attention, being consciousness. You use your attention and you focus on an angry thought. So when you focus on it, you plug that angry thought in, it powers up, and you get to experience it. Emotion intensifies that, and you feel angry because you always feel what you're thinking. Emotion will always intensify what you're thinking. So if you select another thought, being consciousness, use your attention to select a happy thought, you plug that happy thought in, power it up, you experience it, and emotion allows you to feel happy. This is how it works all the time. 100% of the time it will deliver these results to you. And the only reason, and everyone's doing it, they're just following thought and taking the lead of the tools, which you can't do, and that's why you experience things that you don't want, because you're plugging into the wrong things and you don't realize it. Making sense?
Yes. It definitely does make sense. And I must say that honestly, I'm not used to thinking this way because I'm so conditioned to think a certain way since the time I was conceived, probably, or whatever, or in my mommy's tummy, because apparently babies can hear sound when they're inside the mother's stomach and stuff. But I think that conditioning, it's ingrained. Maybe. What do you think? Do you think there's help for me?
Well,
I'm 50 years old, so.
Well, yeah, I'm 48, so most of my life I was unconscious and not controlling my mind. So most people are in that scenario. The problem is it becomes very simple once you stop believing your thoughts and you have to relate to your mind mechanically instead, which is actually it's pretty simple to do once you get it. And then when I say, well, you don't believe your thoughts, people are like, how can you not believe your thoughts? What are you talking about? Blah, blah, blah. Well, you can't look at the mind from that level. And I'll give you an example of how I was just explaining how it works mechanically. You focus your attention on a thought, you experience that thought, emotion allows you to feel what you're thinking. So that's the mechanics. Now, I'll explain to you why it doesn't matter if that thought is real or false or reality or fantasy. It doesn't make any difference. If you focus on a fantasy, angry situation, if you focus on that, you can make yourself furious. If you focus on an actual event that happened before that made you angry, you'll be furious. If you focus on something that's happening right now that you think is making you mad, you'll be furious. So in all three of those cases, one's a complete fantasy, one's a memory that's not occurring now, and the other one you believe is occurring now. But mechanically, it's the same thing. So all you have to do is not pay attention to that thought and not plug it in, and you will not experience that anger. And then the next part of that, like, well, how can you do that? You won't be rational. No, you are rational. You're just not experiencing the suffering with that. What I say is there's four parts. You're the consciousness that's directing the tools. The tools are stupid. They're not you. They need to be directed. So when you don't use the tool to feel something, you're still rational. You still realize, since we're talking about anger, you still realize the situation's no good or it sucks, or you may need to take certain steps to get out of it or modify your situation. You're still well aware of that. You don't lose that. You're just not angry. You're not suffering. You're not beating yourself up. And the same thing would work for a sad situation. If you're grieving for a loss, and I've got through many losses of loved ones, and instead of punishing yourself, grieving, and feeling bad all the time, you just don't focus on those thoughts that make yourself suffer because you're making your own suffering. And that doesn't change the situation that you still love the person that went, it doesn't change the situation. It's still horrific. You still know all those things. You're just not suffering anymore. It's not like you're not banging your head against the wall because that doesn't serve you. You can still make rational decisions, take the proper actions. You're just doing it without suffering. And you do that by relating to the mind mechanically because you know what to do. You pull your attention away and you become peaceful. Or, obviously in a horrific situation, you probably will not want to focus on a happy thought, but you can definitely be peaceful. And, I've tested this in those kind of situations, and it works every time. You just got to get used to relating to your mind mechanically, not punishing yourself, because your thoughts aren't you. You're directing them. This is the problem. People believe their thoughts are them, their beliefs are them, and it gets all convoluted. But when you understand your mind mechanically and you just relate to it that way, everything becomes very, very easy, and that's our natural state. This is how we're supposed to operate. This is how humanity is supposed to operate. And over time, after birth, we've lost this, and we're basically an unconscious society. When the thoughts are running around, we're chasing them like, a puppy dog, and this is why the world is in chaos. Understand our mind mechanically, we regain control of the tool, just like, you know how to use your arms and legs to walk, pick up things, make things. It's the same thing with the tools in your mind, and you start using them properly.
So I understand that you are coming out with a second book. Your first book, Universal Happiness Method, is available for people free of charge. But your second book, I understand, is going to be a manual for the mind. Now, that's what I'm very interested in because, like I said, I was conditioned from an early age. But, if parents maybe had a manual, to something, an instruction manual to go by, maybe to help train up their children in the best way that possible, and teachers at school and such, don't you think that would be so much simpler?
You're right. It's actually vital because as adults we have to unlearn our conditioning of reacting to thought for our whole life. That's why it took me so long. When I did it, I didn't know what I was doing. I wasn't attached to a Zen master. I didn't have any help. I didn't know what I was doing. So it took me a long time. But as adults, we have to unlearn a lot of those things. But presenting the mind mechanically makes it much easier. It's not something that takes years. You don't have to meditate or anything. You can definitely get it. I have many methods so people can understand it. But yes, children, they should just learn that right off the bat because then they're not going to cause their own suffering. And we really cause most of our own suffering inside our heads. And
so it's
again,
like a big misunderstanding, huh? We just don't know. We don't know any better, right? We just don't know how to. We don't understand the mechanics of our mind, and we don't know how to. How? We don't know how. So if you could show us how in a manual or a webinar or on the radio or on TV, I personally greatly appreciate that, and I'm sure a lot of people do. You have a pretty big following on Twitter alone, so you're saying something that people are craving. I believe that. In the conspiracy world, there's a lot of talk of mind control, and I'm sure you're aware of that, and which gives the word control a kind of a negative connotation. It doesn't have to be negative. To control our own minds is a positive thing. It's not a negative thing. We don't want others to control our minds. I don't.
And I'm glad you brought that up because once you regain conscious control like I have, and this is what enlightenment is. It's nothing beyond this. Okay. You regain control of your mind, and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. You realize who you are, and you're using the tools, and you understand other people, why they're suffering. You understand the whole thing. So this is enlightenment when you regain control of your mind. But the benefit of regaining control of your mind is when you're talking about mind programming and conspiracy people. And as you know, I was a mind programming expert prior to regaining consciousness, so I know quite a bit about that. But what mind programming does, it programs the menu of thought. It programs the thoughts that flash in front of your consciousness that you select with your attention. Now, when you're conscious, you're evaluating that menu. You don't believe it anymore. So what happens when you regain conscious control of your own mind, you're deprogrammed and you can't be reprogrammed again. It's impossible. In one fell swoop, you're deprogrammed and you cannot be reprogrammed because the menu gets programmed, the thought menu gets programmed. But you look at the thought menu as just a menu instead of believing it. So nothing can be slid in because you're evaluating what you're thinking instead of just reacting to it and believing it. Something absurd comes through, you're like, I'm not going to do that. That's crazy. Whereas before you could be led to believe, well, I think I want to buy 20 cases of Coca-Cola. Yeah, I think I need that today. That doesn't work anymore.
How would your mind or understanding of the mind mechanics, how would that fit into with all the physical things going on? You know, I drink bottled water, so if I want to control my mind, then I'm going to take other steps like that, right? I'm not going to drink fluoride in my water.
Well, right. I mean,
so there's additional things, right? We can't just control our mind and then everything's going to be fine. Because there are other things that are going on. Yeah.
In order to do anything, it all starts in the mind. So in order to make a decision to drink spring water instead of polluted water somewhere else, if that's how you see it, that starts in the mind. But what I'm saying is that the decision process is truly with you. It's not convoluted by believing your thoughts. Mind programming only works if you believe your thoughts. You're unconscious. You're just reacting to them. Where they throw up, oh my God, I must feel like that because I just saw it. That's the problem. That goes away. You cannot be controlled that way anymore. And the fail-safe that we can't be controlled is impossible. Your attention is not hard-coded in your mind. If it was, you could navigate from thought to thought and move around. So that guarantees that ultimately we cannot be controlled. So all you have to do is wrestle back conscious control of your attention, which is your natural state, and then you can't be controlled by manipulating the menu anymore. Yeah,
it makes sense because our minds control our bodies. Yeah, our minds control our bodies. So once we have wrestled back control of our minds, then our minds are controlling our bodies, right? So we consciously
everything
control.
Starts in the mind. Yeah, and what I'll say on Twitter is, we try to control our lives when we can't control our minds. We're doing everything backwards. We got and they're just tools. When you relate to them as tools, like you use your hands to build a house or whatever, use a hammer. It's the same thing with how you use attention, thought, and emotion. They're just tools, and they have no intelligence. They must be directed. The problem is we're allowing them to direct us. We're puppets to them, and we don't realize it. Some people can't even conceptually swallow what I'm saying, even though I've proven it empirically. But and the other thing is the mind is very easy to control. It's been made complex, and people have created a complex belief structure that they believe, and that prevents them from controlling their mind. I reduced it, tested it, simplified it, and you can verify all these things that I say about the mind in your head. And you know they're true. You're like, you just need a few epiphanies, and you believe it, then you know it, and you've got control back, and it's permanent. You can't go backwards. You can't become unconscious again. It's impossible.
And that brings me to the next point. You and I don't know how much we can say about this, but I think I can just mention it, that you have an audio series coming out, and that will help. It involves what do you call that? Help me out. Retraining.
You're talking about mind probe. You're talking. The brainwave.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Brain.
What I'm doing is
retrain. Yeah. Entrainment. That's what it's called, brain entrainment.
And
so
it's mind programming. It's a mind programming suite, and what it's designed to do is accelerate the understanding of the teaching. Because mind programming still works very effectively if you're not conscious, which is 99% of the planet. So if I use this mind programming to understand the teaching, accelerate to look for the things that I'm telling you to notice, you'll notice them faster. And then you regain conscious control faster, and once you do, then you don't need that anymore.
Excellent. Oh, okay. Then you will never need that again, probably, huh?
Well, the whole thing is, this is the best investment of your life, because once you're conscious, you can never go backwards. It's impossible. It can't be done.
Yes.
I can't be rendered unconscious permanently. I just can't do it. You can have a little slip-up in your head, and you realize that, I'm reacting to thought, and you back out of it. But you can't go back to being controlled by thoughts and emotions or mind programming. That can't happen anymore.
So from then on, it's a choice. It's a choice from then on.
And actually, it's always a choice. You're reacting to thought as a choice. You're just not aware of it constantly, because you really can't do anything in your mind without you allowing it. But you just don't know, so you chase thoughts. You believe them, you plug them in, and then there's the chaos. That's the chaos and the madness in the world right there.
So awareness is key. It's number one, right? So we need to be aware that we're making certain choices. A lot of times we're not even aware of it. We do it automatically. It's a habit. Yeah,
and it's hard to control when you believe your thoughts. Again, all you have to do is relate to it mechanically. And I have a method. I have teachings for that. Simple. You'll get it. You just use it. You'll get the hang of it, and then you'll be conscious before you know it.
I love being conscious.
Shoots up. You have motivation, discipline, all those things you chase, and happiness. All that stuff. You have it all.
Now you've helped people with drinking problems, suicidal people, and different people like that, right? With this system?
Yeah. I mean, I was suicidal myself, And, all these things come down to wrestling control of your attention again, because then you select the right things. Obviously, it's tremendous for addiction, although you can have a physiological dependency, which you'll need something else in addition. But, suicidal thoughts, you become unsuicidal by not believing those thoughts anymore, by not focusing on them. When you understand what they are, it worked for me.
And depression and things like that.
Yeah, depression, grieving.
Grieving.
I have a whole video on everything that I went through. I went through horrendous stuff. At the time, I was regaining control of my mind. So I did it by myself, without any help, without a Zen master, without any training, with nothing, during the most horrific times. Deaths, poverty-stricken, terrible health, financially destroyed. It's lucky I even survived. And during the thick of that is where I regained control of my mind. So if I can do it, anyone can do it, because this is universal, the mechanics, and we're all the same on that level.
So that's why you developed the mechanics of the mind, was because you were in a lot of pain?
I did it so I could survive and figure out.
Okay.
I figured out that I was punishing myself, and almost no one realizes that they're doing it to themselves. Once you realize that, you don't punish yourself anymore. Like you wouldn't go bang your head on the wall right now, because you know you're doing it. Same thing with thought. You're making yourself suffer with thought and emotion in exactly the same way. Once you realize it, you're not going to bang your head on the wall anymore. Mm-hmm. You're going to choose to give yourself a massage instead,
Yeah, exactly. So who benefits from understanding the mechanics of their mind?
Everyone, every human being on Earth. Like I said, this is lasting happiness. This is endless motivation, discipline. You free yourself from misery and suffering because you are the source. And the beauty of this is the mechanics are positioned before we create beliefs. And beliefs are what separates us. So regardless of your lifestyle, your political beliefs, religious beliefs, none of that matters because it's before all that. You don't have to change any of that stuff. This passes no judgments on anything. It's just mechanically how you operate your mind. So it fits in with everyone. Mm-hmm. It's not biased.
So you don't have to change. There's
no
you
have to change anything.
This
is before all that mess that makes us different.
Okay.
This is universal, and I knew it was universal when I landed there. That's another thing. You can refer to being in conscious control as being enlightened. Once you're there and you realize how the mind works, you realize a universal level, and you realize it's just beliefs that separate us. And again, it can't be offensive.
Can you say that again? That's very powerful.
What was that?
Beliefs that separate us.
Yeah, beliefs are the only thing
Everyone
that
out there
separate us.
listening, that is extremely powerful sentence right there, that statement. It is only beliefs that separate us.
No, it literally is. And when you understand the mind, this will be obvious. There's no convincing that's needed. And again, your lifestyle doesn't have to change. You'd have to change your viewpoints because at that level, viewpoints are just viewpoints. They're all
That's true.
They're all the same thing, different flavor. It's
Yes, I agree, and we're very excited. Okay, so to recap, Michael says that we are being managed by our minds without realizing it. This causes us an unnecessary misery and difficulty. By gaining a new understanding of our mind, we can feel better, improve our lives, and make our world a brighter place.
Well, I knew that the show was short today, so I was trying to pack a lot in for the listeners so they could get a good idea on how the mind works and that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. But I'll slow down if I have more time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I know a lot of these concepts are easy for me, but not so easy for others. But when if I'm in a webinar and I have a number of hours or something, I can explain it really easy. Mind. I'll explain to you how to be happy using the mind, using the mechanics. Everything comes down to the mechanics. I apply it to different things, and I'll explain exactly how you can make yourself happy. This is how you're doing it now. Every time you're ever happy, you did it the way I'm going to explain to you. Just aren't aware of it. So once you can control it, guess what? Lasting happiness right there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, thank you, Michael, for your hard work and dedication to making our world a better place. We look forward to our next show on Blog Talk Radio.
Awesome. Thank you, Toni.